An injury update as Igor Tudor could have two injured players back for the North London derby this weekend. Fabrizio Romano confirms Igor Tudor's position at Spurs and states that he will only be in charge until the end of the season. Thomas Frank could be back in work soon as three Premier League clubs eye the ex-Spurs boss, and a report states that if Spurs are relegated, they could face a £168 million exodus by their best players. Here are your daily Tottenham news headlines. Hello, welcome back to the channel. My name's Craig and here are your daily Tottenham news headlines where I'll be going through all the latest news, rumours and reports. If you're watching on YouTube and are not already as yet subscribed to the channel, please consider doing so, like, share and comment below. And if you're listening on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. And finally, please make sure you turn on the notification bell so you get notified whenever we go live or upload a video to the channel. Okay, let's get into it. The Standard report that Igor Tudor has inherited a Tottenham squad decimated by injuries, as we know, but the new Spurs head coach could be boosted by the return of some players for Sunday's huge North London derby against Arsenal. Pedro Porro has been out since suffering a hamstring injury in the 2-2 draw at Burnley last month. Porro has missed the last 4 Spurs games, but the right-back has been pushing to return in time to face Arsenal. Richarlison was initially ruled out for up to 7 weeks when he suffered a hamstring injury in the FA Cup match against Villa on January 10th. But like Porro, Thomas Frank said that last month the Brazilian could potentially return in time to face Arsenal. Give Me Sports stated that, reporting on his YouTube channel, Fabrizio Romano has confirmed that Tottenham's plan for their new manager is clear. The respected journalist confirms that Spurs will go for a different manager in the summer, with Tudor heading out the door following the expiration of his short-term contract. Although that might seem obvious to some, as mentioned, we've seen managers hired on an interim basis earning them a permanent deal on numerous occasions. But Romano appears to be sure that Spurs will be heading in a different direction come the summer. Tudor's record as a manager certainly shows why Tottenham will be avoiding a permanent appointment. In recent years, Tudor has spent short time at each club, lasting just 24 games at Juve, 11 games at Lazio and 48 at Marseille. Tottenham will be looking for a long-term appointment with their next manager, someone who is going to steer them back in the right direction and deliver success over a long period, with ex-boss Mauricio Pochettino, of course, one of the front runners. Team Talk reports that despite a tumultuous tenure at Spurs, Frank remains very highly regarded by clubs in the Premier League and is expected to be able to make a swift return to the dugout. London sides Palace, Fulham and join AFC Bournemouth in considering appointing the manager. Crystal Palace know they will lose Oliver Glasner at the end of the season, with the Austrian confirming that he will not sign a new contract. Meanwhile, Marco Silva is also set to see his deal expire at Craven Cottage, with Andoni Iraola in a similar position at the Vitality Stadium. Team Talk report a former Tottenham scout has warned that as many as 4 players could look to exit if an unlikely scenario does not come to fruition at the club by the end of the season. Some feel there's a genuine danger that Spurs could drop down to the Championship for the first time in its current guise. There feels to be very little chance of securing European football, with 12 games to make up a gap currently at more than 10 points, which is likely to rise. With that, former Spurs scout Brian King feels there is a danger that the club will lose some of its biggest stars, such as Romero, Van der Ven, Vicario, Solanke or Richarlison, with a total cost of £168 million. He stated if they don't win the Champions League, they aren't going to be in Europe next season. I can see Romero, Van der Ven, Vicario, then one of Solanke Solanke or Richarlison wanting to leave. The Madrid clubs are there. Atletico want Romero and Real want Van der Ven. If you lose those two, it brings in big money, but they've got to be replaced. Solanke was the most expensive of those players when they signed. But if any are to leave, Spurs will want to be fairly compensated. Team Talk is aware that Romero does in fact want to leave, and if he does, a record fee is desired. Indeed, we have learned of interest from Atletico Madrid and Barcelona in the centre-back, who makes up part of Tottenham's best defensive duo. Sources have stated it will take 70 to 80 million pounds to prize the Argentine away from North London. Whether the aforementioned sides will go for that far remains to be seen, as Barca in particular have had financial troubles, making it difficult to fund big signings in recent seasons. Okay, here's my thoughts on those stories today. Firstly, the injury situation at Spurs. Well, we know about the players that are long-term injuries, so I didn't bother going into those. Dejan Kulusevski, of course, James Maddison, Wilson Odobert, to name but a few. The Spurs have had so many injuries this season, of course, we know they have, but it looks like Pedro Porro and perhaps Richarlison could be back for Igor Tudor in the North London derby. That would be a huge boost for the new manager. Porro, of course, I've seen Porro get a fair bit of stick, but his delivery is very, very good. So I think it would be timely to have someone like Porro back. And if he does play wing backs, Tudor, then that Porro's going to relish that, get him forward a fair bit more and whipping in crosses to the likes of Solanke or Richarlison when Richarlison's fit, of course. And say what you want about Richarlison, I've critiqued him in the past, but he can head the ball. He is good in the air, so hopefully more crosses are going to be coming in, although some would say that's how Spurs obviously played under Frank, but we all know how that went. So look, ultimately getting any players back for the new manager is going to be good. So if Porro and or Richarlison can come back soon, that is really going to help the manager. The likes of Danzo perhaps a little bit longer, but we'll see how that one goes, and hopefully get an update from Tudor when he does his press conference before the Arsenal game. As regards the new manager's future, it's just been confirmed there by Romano that it is an interim appointment. There's no expectation or anything like that Tudor is going to be offered the job full time. I would imagine, however, if he wins every game between now and the end of the season in the Champions League, the club might rethink, but let's face it, that's not going to happen. So this is just a short-term interim. I see a lot of people online getting a bit underwhelmed by his appointment. I do get it, totally. That's what I thought, but this kind of makes sense, this appointment. I've said it before in a couple of videos. This guy is a firefighter, and I think he's going to come in, just steady the ship. Look, that's all we need. We need to stay in the Premier League. Do they bin off the Champions League, in essence, just to keep us in the Premier League? If you need to, and it's a choice between the two, I think you've got to. Very different situation this season than last season. We was never going to go down last season, but of course this year that gap is a lot more close to the likes of West Ham and Forest, of course. So, status in the Premier League is paramount. So, and that's what he's been brought in to do. Just quickly touching on Thomas Frank, saying that he could take over roles at perhaps Fulham or Bournemouth or even Palace. I would imagine Thomas Frank does get back into a top team soon, and the likes of a Palace or a Fulham, I think Frank could do very well there. He just, as we all know, wasn't the right fit for Tottenham and never would be. But, wish him well. Hopefully he can get back into management soon if he indeed wants to. And finally, the £168 million exodus if Spurs are relegated. We know we'd lose some of our better and top players. Of course we would. I'm not... Look, I know people think we're in a relegation battle, and I get it, I do. But personally, I don't think, when you look at our fixtures, and now I think this new manager boost and bounce, I think we're going to be fine. And I've actually worked it out. I think I might be being a bit optimistic, but I think we'll actually end up with around 47 points, which of course will be enough to keep us in the Premier League. It's more important actually to look at the other teams around us. I know we can only affect ourselves, but when you look at who Forest have got to play, for example, they need to play both the Manchester clubs and Chelsea away from home. So that's going to be tough. And they also face home games against Liverpool and Villa. that's among the rest of their fixtures, and of course the Premier League's been mental this season. Everyone's beating everybody else, so look, they could beat both Manchester clubs, but it's going to be a big ask for Forest. They've got some really tough games, and don't forget we've also got to play Forest at home, so that is a definite must win for us. West Ham's fixtures are a bit more favourable, you have to say. Obviously they've gone through a bit of a bounce themselves after recruiting well in the January transfer window. They have to go to Villa and Liverpool, but they also play Wolves and Leeds at home, and they also have to play Fulham, Bournemouth, Palace and Everton. So West Ham's fixtures, you would think on paper at least, are a bit more favourable for them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see West Ham stay up and Forest go down. Look, of course we're still in the conversation. We've got to climb that Premier League table and quickly, but let's hope we can start with a win against Arsenal. They won't want to be playing us now. We've got a new manager. They will hate that. So look, it's going to be a huge ask. Arsenal, obviously they are where they are. We all know where they are. We all know where Spurs are, but you know, new manager bounce, that's what I'm hoping for Sunday, and hopefully Spurs can start climbing up that Premier League. Wouldn't it be a great way to start on Sunday by beating Arsenal? Anyway, that's all from me today. Get down in the comments and let me know how you're feeling as a Tottenham Hotspur fan right now, and give me your thoughts on any of the stories today. And as always, come on you Spurs.